there, welcome to the first of 3 explainer videos on founder dilution. This is a pretty dense topic, so we've tried to break it down into digestible chunks. This first video will really focus on the basics of what founder dilution is and how it works, so if you think you already understand the concept, feel free to jump ahead to video number 2, where we'll dig into some cap table math. If you're an entrepreneur, you've probably already thought about whether you'll need to raise outside money to fund your business. There are 2 basic ways of doing this: borrowing the money or selling an ownership interest in your business. In legal terms, borrowed money is debt, while an ownership interest in your business, or a right that will convert into an ownership interest, is called an equity interest. And lawyers will generally distinguish between a debt financing and an equity financing, although these 2 categories aren't really distinct. There's a lot of overlap in real life. The economics of a pure debt financing rely on interest payments. You borrow money and pay interest to the lender until you repay it. You might also have to offer security for the loan, like a guarantee or a pledge of assets. In a pure equity financing, though, your company sells shares and does not pay interest or have any obligation to repay. But there is dilution. So let's take a look at a quick example. Let's say that we have 2 companies, Exempli and Illustrio, and both have issued 2 million shares, which are 100% owned by the 2 founders. So let's say that both companies want to raise $100,000. Now, Exempli's founders decide that they will borrow the money at a simple interest rate of 20% per year. So they keep 100% of the company, but they have to pay 20% per year in interest and repay the principal. Illustrio's founders, on the other hand, decide that they'll sell shares to raise the money, so an equity financing. In this case, let's say that they sell those shares for 10 cents per share, or 1 million shares. This, of course, means that the founders no longer own 100% of the company. In fact, they'll own 66.6% since they own 2 million of 3 million shares, and the investors will now own 33.3%. But at this point, it's not totally clear who got the better deal. Exempli has to pay all that interest and repay the principal, but Illustrio's founders have given up a big chunk of their company. Let's say that after 5 years, both companies are sold for $1 million. Looking at the proceeds that the founders of Exempli would receive, we would have to take the $1 million sale price, then subtract the $100,000 in interest that they would have paid over the past 5 years, then subtract a further $100,000 for repayment of the principal of the loan, which gives us $800,000. So the founders of Exempli would receive $800,000 of the proceeds. In the case of Illustrio, there isn't any debt to repay. However, the founders only own 66.6% of the company, so the proceeds payable to the founders will only be $1 million times 66.6%, or $666,000. For context, that's 17% less than the founders of Illustrio received. So founder dilution can have really profound economic consequences for the founders. So at this point, you might be asking, well, why would I ever want to do an equity financing as a founder? Well, these are just examples. In reality, startups looking to raise money through debt typically have to give up some equity, usually in the form of a warrant or a convertible note, which often makes the cost of the debt closer to that of an equity financing. There are also a lot of advantages to pure equity financings. There's no drag on your cash flow for interest payments. You generally don't have to worry about offering guarantees or security, which you might have to do if you borrow the money, and you typically don't have a deadline to repay the amount. But it does come at a high price, which is founder dilution. Okay, so that's it for this introductory video. In the next video, we'll get into a more realistic example using convertible securities. Thanks so much for watching.